It started with a red scarf. I still remember that day like it was yesterday, the wind biting through my coat, the city draped in shades of gray, and then her. Bright, laughing, wrapped in crimson like she'd stepped out of another world. She dropped her coffee. I picked it up. She smiled. I forgot my name. Her name was Ava. She talked fast, like she was afraid life would run out before she could say everything she wanted to. Her eyes were fire, sharp and alive, and her laugh. God, that laugh. It wrapped around your ribs and squeezed. I was the quiet one. The one who listened, who lingered at the edges of rooms, who let my older brother, Liam, take the spotlight. He was loud, magnetic, the kind of guy people didn't just notice, they followed. I'd spent a lifetime learning to be okay with being second. But with Ava, for the first time, I wasn't second. We met again a week after the scarf, by coincidence, or maybe fate. She was at the library, nose buried in a thick book on philosophy, complaining about how the world made no sense and somehow made it sound like poetry. I asked if I could join her. She didn't even look up when she said, "Only if you don't mind falling in love." She said things like that all the time, bold, outrageous, like her heart was permanently on her sleeve. I never knew if she meant them. I always hoped she did. It wasn't long before we were inseparable. Long drives with no destination. Endless nights talking under streetlights. Her paint-stained fingers in my hair, her head on my shoulder. She told me secrets she said she'd never told anyone. And I told her things I'd never admitted even to myself. I was in love. I was sure she was too. And then I introduced her to Liam. He came to visit one weekend, swagger in every step, that effortless smile he wore like a weapon. He said the right things. Flashed that charm. I watched him look at her like he always looked at things he wanted. And I watched her smile back. It started small. An extra laugh at his joke. A longer glance than necessary. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was being insecure. That Ava chose me, not him. But I knew Liam. He never wanted anything unless it already belonged to someone else. And Ava? She'd always been drawn to fire. The cracks widened slowly. She started pulling away, little by little. Canceling plans. Answering texts later. Saying she was tired or busy. And Liam? He started showing up more often, just to hang out. I asked her one night, my voice trembling, "Is there something going on between you two?" She didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said finally, barely above a whisper. "It just did." I stood there, numb, as the girl I loved admitted she'd fallen for my brother. I wanted to scream. To punch a wall. To disappear. But all I said was, "Okay." And I walked away. Not because I wasn't angry. Not because I wasn't broken. But because I loved her too much to make her choose. And I refused to beg my own brother for what was already mine. I told myself I'd forget her. That time would heal it. But some scars don't fade, they just learn how to hide. And I had no idea that 7 years later, I'd be the one holding the mic at their wedding. With a secret they never saw coming. Growing up, Liam always walked a step ahead of me. He was the kind of boy who got gold stars without trying, the kind who could break rules and still be loved for it. I was the rule follower. The observer. The one who picked up the messes he left behind. I never hated him, not really. I envied him. Resented the way he moved through life so easily while I tried to stitch my worth together from silence and shadows. But I loved him too. He was my brother. My best friend. The one person who always made me feel like I wasn't invisible, until he took Ava. After she left, the days blurred together. I'd wake up, go to work, come home, and sit in the dark. I deleted her number. Blocked her on everything. Still, I caught myself checking her socials from burner accounts, wondering if she missed me, if she even remembered. She did. At least in the beginning. 3 months after she left, I got a message from her. I think about you every day. I don't know if I made the right choice. I stared at it for hours. Then I deleted it. Because I knew what would happen if I answered. She'd say all the right things. She always knew how to. And I'd forgive her, again. I'd let her tear me apart until there was nothing left to salvage. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I said nothing. But Liam? He didn't stop. He tried to act like everything was normal, like we were still close, like what he'd done hadn't cracked our bloodline in two. You okay, man? He'd ask casually, like he hadn't stolen the woman I thought I'd marry. I'm good, I'd lie, swallowing the bitterness like poison. I started noticing it more after that, the pattern. Liam always wanted what I had. My books when we were kids. My guitar in high school. My ideas, my clothes, my style, and finally, Ava. He wasn't in love with her. Not really. He was in love with the idea of taking something from me. And Ava? I think deep down, she knew. But she loved attention more than she loved truth. Still, I tried to move on. I started writing again. Started traveling. Met new people. Dated casually, but never deeply. It always felt unfair to them, they were being compared to someone I should have let go of long ago. Then, 2 years after the breakup, I saw a photo online. Ava and Liam. Paris. Eiffel Tower behind them. Her hands on his chest. A diamond on her finger. Engaged. My lungs felt like they'd been punched. I hadn't cried in years, but that night I did. I cried until my chest ached and my pillow was soaked. Not because I still wanted her. But because it felt like they'd won. They had each other. The world saw them as perfect, the golden couple. And me? I was the afterthought. The footnote in their love story. But grief has a way of turning into fuel. And that night, I made a decision, I would become someone they couldn't ignore. Someone they couldn't overshadow. Not out of revenge, but out of necessity. I wasn't going to chase love anymore. I was going to chase power. Because the next time they saw me, I wouldn't be the broken boy they left behind. I'd be the man they had to look up to. And when I stood in front of them, with a mic in my hand and a secret in my pocket, they'd finally understand. They never should have underestimated me. Revenge wasn't on my mind when I started rebuilding. At least, that's what I told myself. After Ava and Liam's engagement photo went viral on their little corner of social media, I disappeared, not physically, but spiritually. I unplugged from everything and everyone, choosing isolation over interaction, purpose over pain. I moved to another city. Took a job at a mid-tier startup, quiet, under the radar, exactly what I needed. I worked. I listened. I learned. In silence, I grew. While they were off having destination pre-weddings and picture-perfect brunches, I was busy learning how to build empires. 1 year turned into 2. I got promoted. Then again. By the 5th year, I wasn't just climbing the ladder, I was redesigning it. By the 6th, I had my own company. By the 7th, I had 7. My name started appearing in interviews, podcasts, magazines. I became the face of resilience, the man who turned heartbreak into hustle. No one knew the full story, I made sure of that. The world only saw a sharp suit, a calm smile, and success. But inside, the wound had never fully closed. It didn't bleed anymore, it just pulsed beneath the surface, a quiet reminder of what I'd lost, and who had taken it. I didn't date much. Couldn't. Every time I tried, Ava's ghost would wedge itself between me and whoever sat across from me. I couldn't offer anyone the full version of myself, because that version had been fractured. I'd buried the past as best I could, until one morning, I opened my email. Subject, wedding invitation. From, Liam and Ava. I stared at it, blinking. They were getting married. Finally. And they wanted me there. Was it guilt? Some twisted attempt to include me? A final show of dominance, look what we have. Look what you don't. But what struck me wasn't the invite. It was the location. Ashcroft Estate. One of my company's latest acquisitions. They didn't know. The venue. The staff. The tech. Even the champagne list, it was all mine. They had no idea I owned the very ground they were getting married on. And that meant something. It meant I had a choice. I could decline. Ignore them. Let the past rot in peace. Or I could show up. I could walk in with calm confidence, offer a toast, and finally speak my truth, not with anger, but with elegance. Not to destroy them, but to reclaim me. And so I RSVP'd. Would be honored to attend. Looking forward to it. And yes, I'd love to give a speech. I sent it with a steady hand. No rage. No sarcasm. Just a promise. Because after 7 years of silence, it was finally time to speak. The Ashcroft estate looked different from the last time I visited, mostly because back then, it was just another acquisition. Now, it was the stage. And I was the man holding the final script. The week before the wedding, I walked the halls with the estate manager, finalizing the logistics. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel it. The weight of it. Every marble tile, every floral arrangement, every glittering chandelier. Every piece handpicked by them, paid for by me. The irony was surgical. They still didn't know. Liam had sent a follow-up email asking if I was sure I wanted to speak. Only if you're comfortable, he said. We thought it might be nice. Closure, you know? Closure. The word felt like a splinter. But I replied warmly. I told him I was honored, that I'd been rehearsing my speech already. Ava chimed in a day later, just no embarrassing stories, okay, with a winking emoji. I stared at her message for a long time. There was something almost cruel in her lightness, as if she hadn't torn my soul apart years ago. As if we were all just playing parts in a sitcom, smiling through the screen. And maybe we were. Because I smiled right back. Promise. Only the good stuff. I spent that night writing, not the speech, not really, but the moment. Rehearsing it in my head. The rise, the fall. The truth tucked inside the folds of my voice. Not loud. Not dramatic. Measured. Because the most powerful truths are the ones whispered in plain sight. The night before the wedding, I stayed at a hotel nearby. I stood by the window, staring at the estate lights flickering in the distance like a silent warning. And for a moment, I felt something unexpected, grief. Not for Ava. Not even for Liam. But for the version of me that had died all those years ago. The boy who believed love was simple. The boy who thought loyalty was unbreakable. The boy who gave his heart without hesitation, and watched it be handed to someone else like a gift receipt. That boy wouldn't be standing here. But I was. Stronger. Smarter. Sharper. And ready. The morning of the wedding, the sun rose slowly, golden, arrogant, and full of promise. I put on my suit. Crisp. Tailored. Understated, but powerful. Like everything I had become. When I arrived at the venue, Liam hugged me like we were still 16 and chasing footballs through mud. He looked good. Polished. But older, too, like life had worn down some of his edges. Ava smiled at me from across the garden, radiant in white. Glad you came, she said softly. I just nodded. Wouldn't miss it. They didn't see the storm behind my eyes. As the guests arrived, the music began. I watched from a distance, friends, family, laughter. Everyone sipping champagne, blissfully unaware. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Because I knew something no one else in that crowd did. In a few minutes, I would stand at the microphone. And when I said the words, "Let me tell you a secret," the entire room would go still. And the past would finally answer. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a soft gold over the Ashcroft estate as the reception unfolded in full swing. Laughter. Glasses clinking. People dancing. Toasts already made by the best man, the father of the bride, and Ava's teary-eyed mother. Everything was perfect. Everything, scripted. And then the MC cleared his throat. "One more speech before we call it a night, a few words from someone very special to the couple. Please welcome, the groom's brother." The crowd applauded politely. I stood slowly, every eye turning to me. My steps were measured. Not slow, not hesitant, but controlled. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I reached the mic, tapped it once, and smiled at the sea of faces. Then my eyes found them, Ava and Liam, hand in hand at the sweetheart table, smiles frozen just slightly. I nodded. And I began. "Thank you." I wasn't sure what to say at first. After all, it's not every day you give a speech at your brother's wedding, to your ex-girlfriend. The crowd chuckled awkwardly, not fully sure if I was joking. Liam's smile stiffened. Ava's fingers twitched around her wine glass. "But I'm not here to cause drama. I'm here to tell you a story. A love story, actually. One that started with a red scarf, a spilled coffee, and a girl who changed my world. She was wild and brilliant. She laughed like it meant something. And for a while, she chose me." The room was quiet now. The laughter had stopped. But then my brother met her. And things changed. People changed. And eventually, they ended up together. And I was left behind. Pause. But this story isn't about betrayal. It's about what happened next. See, when someone breaks your heart, you can do one of two things: you can let it destroy you, or you can rebuild. Quietly. Patiently. Powerfully. I chose the second. Liam was shifting in his seat now. Ava's face had gone pale, her lips slightly parted. I disappeared for a while. Focused on my work. My name. My future. And years passed. But life, life has a way of circling back, doesn't it? I looked directly at them now. Because when I got your invitation, and I saw the venue, I laughed. Beat. Not because it was funny. But because you didn't know. You didn't know that the estate you're standing in, the flowers you're posing with, the staff serving your guests, the champagne in your glasses. It's all mine. Gasps echoed across the crowd. Mouths opened. Eyes darted. A distant clatter of a fork dropping on a plate. Ava stared at me, her expression shattered somewhere between disbelief and dread. Liam was frozen, lips parted, chest rising faster now. 7 years ago, you took something from me. Today, I returned the favor. But I didn't take your love. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to show you that I survived. That I thrived. And maybe, just maybe, you taught me how. I looked out over the stunned room, then back at them. So thank you, both of you. For the pain. For the silence. For the fire. Because without it, I wouldn't be who I am today. I raised my glass. To Ava and Liam. May your love be as strong as the silence I carried. And may your memories of me never be quite as quiet again. I stepped down. No applause. Just stunned silence. And behind me, the sound of everything shifting, the past colliding with the present, the perfect facade cracking at its seams. I walked through the crowd, head high, the whisper of gasps following me. For once, I wasn't in my brother's shadow. He was in mine.